Wow. I love that intro. Man, that intro is so cool.
Heck yeah, that's great.
All right. I'd like to welcome everybody here. We're just going to go for a couple minutes just trying to find out who we all are and all that kind of stuff. If you could put in the chat who you are and what branch of service you served in as we go through this and get ready because it'll take a while for everybody to file in. But before we get to that, my name is John Trimble. I'm a senior veteran coach here at the ACI. And I came through the program just like most of you are going to be going through the program or are going through the program. And now I am 100% PNT. But before we go any further, I'd like to go ahead and introduce my buddy over here, Coach Sean Jordan.
Yeah, thanks, brother.
Fresh off a deployment, we nicknamed him Captain America, just so you guys know. So, but
yeah, I appreciate that intro, John. Yeah, no, it's good to be back, and it's good to see everybody here. I look forward to working with a lot of you. Yeah, I'm Sean. I'm a product of the program as well, 100% PNT, and yeah, look forward to working on some PTSD here. It's a great claim. We'll get more into the specifics of it in a little bit, but yeah, this is great. And just got back from deployment, so any of you that are currently serving or that are going through the process, kind of thinking about it, just getting off active, save those questions. I'd love to knock them out at the end, especially going through SHAPE and the exit physical and all that, and how does it work for you? And even, for those who've been out for a little bit, and you're wondering, how am I going to connect this, or how am I going to get ready for it? We're going to discuss all that.
Yeah, perfect. I saw a couple. I saw Army, I saw Marine.
Cool.
We also got an Air Force there, Jeffrey Straw. Awesome, welcome. Thank you for your service. Army and Air Force. Wow.
Rambo, love it.
Yeah. All right. Savannah, Georgia. I loved Savannah when I was in.
All right,
3 deployments there.
Here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Texas. All right, Army. Uh-oh. I think the Army's taking over. Yep, the Army's taking over today.
All right, we got any engineers out there? Any infantry? Heck
awesome.
Yeah, a bunch of Army. This is great. Air Force, Navy, great. You're all in a great spot. I think John and I are a little biased here. We're both Army vets, but here to help everyone.
Yes. All right, another one from the Air Force. Oh, Navy. Oh, uh-oh. Here comes the Marines. They're coming in left and right now. There's an Army engineer.
Heck yeah, it's Seance, brother.
Artillery. Navy, 8103. 11 Bravo. Hoorah.
All right, got some
all right.
Oh, Coast Guard. Oh, that's
nice.
Don't see them very often. That's great.
Wow, we got a lot of people coming in. This is cool. Southern California, Colorado. Saw Travis Brost is in the house.
Big T, love it.
Texas. All right, Jackson, Mississippi, nice. All right, I tell you what, why don't we go ahead and get started here. We're just going to talk about PTSD, talk about different aspects of PTSD. And then here at the end, we'll go ahead and answer some of the questions that you guys have. But welcome and thank you for your service. And we really appreciate that you came in so we can actually talk about this very important subject. Now, PTSD is just like most of the mental health diagnoses that the VA recognizes, except for one thing: you have to have a stressor event. Now, with the stressor event, it has to be an event that can be verifiable. And I know a lot of people that come in, they're like, well, I have 6 or 7 stressor events. Well, I can understand that, especially from my background. I had a few myself. But you need to focus on one main one, because if you go in there with 6 or 7 different stressor events, then the VA has to try to verify all of those. And you're talking about a process that could have been in a month or 2 months done, but it gets extended out to almost a year. I've got heard stories of people where they were 2-3 years into the process where they're still trying to verify each little event. It makes it a little bit tough. So remember, one event, and it has to be verifiable to where there's a report or there's something in your record, your military record, about this event. Sean, what is your view on the stressor event?
Yeah, kind of taking a step back on this and then jumping into the question. So looking at PTSD as a whole was kind of a big picture here. Based on the Veteran Benefits Administration's 2020 report, it's the 3rd most claimed condition. But with that, of all the mental health conditions, it's the most denied because it's the most specific, as Dr.
Right.
Brown was just mentioning. It requires an in-service stressor event, which is something to make note of. Now, with that, it can also be some of the longest of the mental health claims that go through. Because they have to verify that in-service stressor, as Dr. John was mentioning. So when you go through and you file your claim and you file we'll go into what the forms are. It's the 0781 form, but we'll talk about them in a little more detail. When you fill those out and you send it off to the VA and they have to do their due diligence to verify the information that's there, it goes through and potentially it could get denied, or they have to validate every single one. And so with that, just be advised and don't pigeonhole yourself on PTSD, because PTSD is one of many stressor disorders, which Dr. John's a little more qualified to talk about than I am, just due to those few letters before his name. But when it comes down to it, the like OT, other stressor disorder, acute stressor disorder, adjustment disorder, there's a number of different things that may have very similar symptoms to PTSD, but that might not be either verified or validated by a stressor. So just keep in mind, PTSD is stressor specific. If you have the stressor and you can talk about it and you have documentation for it, absolutely something worth filing for. Again, it's the number 3 most claimed condition. So it's a great condition, typically rated around 50 to 70%, usually around 70%, which is for most of you, that's $1,500 in your pocket for a great claim. So
right,
that's my 2 cents there, John.
Yeah, no, that's perfect, Sean, and you're absolutely right. Now, see, with the VA, the 31 symptoms that they actually look at as they're going through and trying to figure out what your percentage should be and stuff like that, they're all the same across the board for all the mental health diagnoses. You just have that one thing that's different for PTSD, and that could be for combat PTSD, non-combat PTSD, MST. Now, MST actually has a little different of an aspect to it, too. If during or after the event of an MST claim, in your records, you start seeing a decline in your performance, decline in, say, your PT test, decline in days that you called out sick and stuff like that while you were in the military, and just an overall rating type of thing can help you with the MST, because that helps out with, obviously there was an event, obviously it affected the service person in a way to where it took them out of where they were normally. So it can really play real heavy in that for the MST type of claim. Now, but the way I look at it is, if you can have these events that happen to you, but they might not be verifiable. They might not have, somebody along the line didn't write a report or something like that. That's when the other mental health diagnoses come into play, since they're pretty much all the same symptoms. And it's a little bit easier to get connected. A lot of people come to us here at VACI and say, I know I'm suffering from PTSD, but yet their stressor isn't going to be verifiable. So sometimes it's better to go ahead and meet with the psych team and have a different diagnosis, to where it's a lot easier to get service connected, because you don't have to have that verifiable event. And everybody looks at PTSD as the big one, but actually they all kind of come into each other. So, simply said, I mean, there's a little bit more complex things there, but they do kind of come into each other simply because of the 31 symptoms. Now, if you're a member of the Elite, you can get to a nice PDF that Brian did. And also on YouTube, there's a great video that Brian did on all of these 31 symptoms that actually will bring you into where, there's times where I hear veterans say, I didn't even know that was a symptom. Well, yeah, it actually is. So it helps you build your story while you go to your CMP and get ready for that. Now, Sean, you actually talked about something right before we got on the air that I think is very interesting. Since Sean just came off the deployment, he actually has a lot of things that he actually witnessed and things that happened while on this deployment of veterans, and also the people he's taking care of, that I think is real pertinent to this type of conversation. So, Sean, if you want to, I think that was great. So.
No. I wasn't expecting to brief, but So a little bit of my background. I'm a commander in the reserves. So I was called up recently to active duty. Some of you may have watched the news articles on the Afghan, like the withdrawal from Afghanistan, and the 100,000 Afghans that came in, and they're being resettled in America. I was part. So there was 8 camps where all of these guests were placed. And I was one of the commanders that was in charge of resettling them, working with Department of Homeland Security and some of the federal agencies that were in the process of getting them into countries and cities across the United States. But more so when it comes down to the PTSD, being a coach and then being a commander, you see things a little bit of a different lens. And what John and I were talking about a little prior to this call. So just being a commander and simply sleeping in the same open barracks with soldiers, you pick up on some different things. And what we were laughing at was in the evenings, the barracks would sometimes be an orchestra. So you would have, the people that had their CPAPs, so they had, their Darth Vader voice, the CPAP going on, and then you have people that are walking, they're dragging their feet with flip flops, and you can hear them. And then more so, you get the people that need the CPAP, the loud snorers that are shaking the walls. And then you get the occasional people that are waking up with night terrors. They're waking up and they're shaking. Those are the ones, when you talk to them, especially being in the environment that we were in, it was very triggering. And a lot of my soldiers had never thought about filing a mental health claim. So kind of where this is relevant to a lot of you is for those of you who may have experienced a stressor while you were downrange, like you were deployed in Afghanistan, and let's say you were blown up with some IEDs, but you've never filed a claim, but you likely have like a combat action badge, or you likely have some type of document, whether it's an investigation report or something that's there. Great conditions to claim, because again, it's 70%. But more so, it's impacting your quality of life. Like, you may think it's normal, you may think things are right, but then when you're waking up other soldiers because you're screaming in the middle of the night, or potentially your wife or spouse someone who lives near you, or you wake up and you're on the floor and you're gasping for air, because you tend to get brought back to a time where just something in life triggers an event. It's important to get looked at, not only for treatment purposes, but then also for compensation purposes, right? This is stuff you're dealing with. It's impacting your quality of life. If it's impacting your sleep, it's probably impacting your quality of work, probably impacting your memory. It makes things very, you're irritable, you're frustrated. There's a lot of factors and symptoms that are at play, kind of what John was talking about, the 31 symptoms of mental health that are likely there, that you're probably experiencing, that you're talking to someone, and especially talking to a coach who has a good understanding of the processes and the requirements for the VA. It's going to go a long way, because we can help add language and context. So then by the time you ultimately go before the VA potentially and file a claim, and then a C&P examiner to get a rating, you've got someone that's there, that's with you, that can kind of talk through what happened. Because I'm sure my experience probably resonates with some of you at some level, whether you're living with someone that's going through something like this, or your spouse can attest to something like this. It's pretty frequent. So that's my 2 cents, John. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, no, that's perfect. And I couldn't even imagine being, after all that I've been through after the service and then thrown into a situation like that. I'm sure I would have been triggered left and right on that. So. But it's interesting how your story kind of coincides with not only today's class, but things that you need to do. If you do experience this stuff, definitely reach out. Definitely reach out and try to get some help with this. And the best way to do it is start the process with talking to somebody, talking with a coach, also signing up with us. You might be able to get started for free today. If you see this, you can click on this little link that we have right here at the bottom here to help you get through that. But you definitely need to get started talking with everybody. You also have the opportunity here at VA Claims to get in with a free 30-minute discovery also. To let you know, okay, yeah, that is definitely something that you might want to look into. And then when you get with your coach, we here at VACI really pride ourselves on the education part of this. All the coaches, and it's really wild because most of the coaches here actually know a lot more than some of the guys I went to school with, to be honest with you, about PTSD. That was always one of the things that when I was going through school for my PhD, that PTSD was one of those ones that would throw people a little bit, because it was just because of that verifiable event that you have to have, and just the way regular society can't really imagine what those situations were really, really, truly like, where you really feared for your life, or you really feared, or you started thinking about your life, no matter how the situation played out. So it's really important to do that. But definitely, if you're going through this, VA Claims Insider can definitely help you start this. And that is the best step forward to getting to this, or getting through your condition, because you need to get, to truly get through that, you need to open up, you need to talk about it. And then you need to get the help that you deserve. By getting the help you deserve, that's all part of this process of doing a claim for it. Because at the end, you want to be able to adapt and cope with it, and also be able to make it a little bit easier for you, loved ones, to understand what's really going on. And also, if you're getting too far into a dark spot, or something that really is making you really contemplate a lot of negativity, make sure you use this Veteran Crisis line here, 1-800-273-8255. That's a topic that I really am passionate about. We have 22 of our brothers and sisters of the uniform that end up getting to this point and saying enough's enough. And that's 22 a day. We need to stop this. This needs to stop now. If you are going through something, especially PTSD or any other the mental health conditions, talk with another veteran, get with another veteran. That's why it's so cool to be with our coaches. Our coaches know so much about these now that we can actually help you get through that, get that first step done, get the second step done, and then before you know it, you're out there doing what you're supposed to be doing by fighting back. Okay? We're always taught to be a warrior, and there's points where sometimes we have to put the warrior to the side so we can actually explain what's going on, but we still have that warrior mentality. We need to keep fighting as members of this unique community. And we really do need to step out and look out for one another also.
Yeah, it really means something when you can walk away, when you've walked a mile in someone's shoes and you can
right.
You can also empathize, right? So, we're talking about PTSD, and this might sound, contradictory, but when it comes down to PTSD being stressor specific, that's a VA requirement. But coming in, talking to a coach, saying, rather than I have PTSD, but hey, I think I might have, but let's discuss this more. This is where it creates a conversation. And, we're going to the coach, you're talking about symptoms, you're talking about things that you might have, and then we can redirect you to get the VA requirements. Because when it comes down to, taking all this and ultimately going to the VA is a set list of requirements. Think of this back when you were in service, like a promotion packet or a promotion board. There's an administrative set list of requirements and documentation that you need to acquire, provide to the VA, that, and in the long run, will make sure you're taken care of. So we're talking about it, and this might be relatively simple, but again, this is just to start a conversation, because when it comes down to it, especially Dr. John's great with this, but understanding what someone has walked through and they've been through, and then being able to add language and context that someone else is going to be able to understand and make value out of, is going to go a long way.
Right, that's an important part of that, Sean, because like I said, regular society, they're not going to understand a lot of things that we had to go through, or they're not going to understand how one little thing all of a sudden trigger you back to where you think you're back in those negative situations or those hostile situations. And it's important for us to talk about it in a way to where they do get to understand it. And I think they're, it's like that stigma for years about mental health. It's like, no, that needs to get out the window, because that's not being fair to the veteran. That's not being fair to the families. It's not being fair to anybody else involved. Now, when you do talk about these symptoms and stuff like that, there's three main areas that you want to definitely talk about. You want to talk about how it affects you on a daily basis with your family, in your social life, and also at work. Now, when you add that in, what'll happen is you're painting a picture for when you are talking about it, to where they can fully, truly understand what you, as the veteran, going through. I always say, also add a number into it. If you say, I'm feeling anxiety, that's fine to say it like that. But if you say, I feel anxiety at least 3 to 4 times a day, and it triggers this, and this is what happens, that makes it a little bit easier for someone to really, truly understand what you're going through. Now, Sean, what I'd like to really talk about is the different ratings for this. Now, of course, this could go from 0 to 100 just by itself. And you talked about 70 is pretty much the average. And it all goes off of severity and frequency of your symptoms. Now, when you talk about severity, you're talking about, okay, well, I do this, like I just said, 3 to 4 times a day. That's kind of severe when it interrupts your daily activities 3 to 4 times. And when you're talking about it, one affects the other. The next thing I know, I'm getting mad at, the kids, or the next thing I know, I'm getting mad at somebody that tried to take a parking spot at the local Walmart from me. And when you add that into your story, that actually helps out the practitioners that are listening to really get a full understanding of what's going on. It's sort of like what Sean was just talking about, where It wasn't just the CPAPs. It wasn't just the flip-flops. It was just the whole feel of the whole thing. Really helps people to understand. And I know there's a lot of spouses out there that don't really get it, where, something might happen to where, they don't sleep very well. The veteran doesn't sleep very well because they're up and down. They're always checking the locks. They're always doing this. Well, there's a reason for stuff like that. And as long as they know that, then it makes it a little bit easier for spouses or loved ones to also know, okay, this is what they're going through. So, all right.
Yeah, just a really quick note. Again, just so you know, this goes in increments pretty much from 10 to 100. It can also be rated 0.
Right.
We don't see that very often, just because of the symptoms, right? The stress one symptoms, and if you have a documented stressor but you have nothing going on, then that's not very common. But when it comes down to it, even 100% is within reason.
Yes.
Something to be considered is usually, at the 100% level, it's total and social occupational impairment. So usually there's a type of fiduciary that's required when it comes down to the 100%. There are some usual requirements that go on at the end, just to be aware of. But the 100% rating for the condition is well within the realm of possibility for a lot of you. Especially for things that maybe you may not even know. I've had a lot of veterans that I've worked with, and I'm sure John's had the same thing, where you don't think anything of it. Your world seems fairly normal, but then you find out that you're having suicidal ideations, you're having impaired impulse control. John talked about the obsessional rituals, and maybe you have to lock all your doors and windows before you can sleep at night, just to make sure your perimeter is secure. Near continuous depression, it's just hard to get out of bed. Maybe you don't shower for long periods of time. Stuff like this to you might seem normal, but when it comes down to a VA examiner, it's not. And to the average layperson, usually they're not. For any spouses that may be on the call or listening in, just be understanding, and especially understand that usually hostility breeds hostility. So if you go into a conversation, maybe you're the veteran spouse is waking up with night terrors in the middle of the night, and you try to. It creates an argument or a situation, things can exacerbate from there. It's usually best to seek to understand. And really that's where having a coach is nice. Having, someone to talk to that can resonate. There's also the Veteran Crisis Line. Military One Source is another great option for the service members. Even veterans that have been out for a long period of time, you get 12 free consultations from Military One Source. They can redirect you, which is a great resource tool as well. We definitely need to stop the veteran suicide.
Yes.
Understanding the problem, having people that can redirect you to the resources that are available. There's a ton of federal resources that are being pushed to this. We're one resource that is going to help you with your VA claim, but on the federal side, there's a ton of resources that are available to help the situation. So with that, you want to go into questions, John, or is there anything else you want to hit on?
Yeah, no, let's go ahead and start answering some questions, because I know on this subject there's going to be a ton of questions and a ton of different situations that we might need to really kind of address to help bring home what we were talking about. So
yeah, so how can we help?
All
Just
right.
Please put your questions in the chat. We'll try to knock them down as best we can.
Yes, definitely. And I think part of the important part of this too is knowing that, yes, you can trust the coach. Yes, you can trust the process and the situation to get through this. A lot of people don't. They get locked up because of the whole stigma. Like you just mentioned, suicidal ideation. A lot of them don't really realize that there's two types there. And basically what happens is they get locked out. I am not telling anybody about suicidal ideation. They're going to think they're going to lock me up. No, that's not exactly true. What happens is that with that is you've got two different types. One is called active, and that's where you actually have a plan. You've actually maybe carried out some of the plan or even tried to do that. That's called an active one. That's the one that's a little bit more dangerous for us veterans. Then there's passive. Passive ideation is something that you may have said just in passing. I wonder if my family would be better off without me. That's passive, where you don't really plan on doing anything about it, but you do have it bouncing around in your noggin. It's jumping around in there. So, and there's a couple of different things like that, hallucinations is a lot like that. If you've ever woke up late at night, walked through your living room and thought you saw something in the corner, that's a hallucination. But then you start realizing, no, it's the curtain moving because of the way the AC is blowing. But for that split second, because of what we went through as a warrior, things can pop into your head real quick and put you on high alert real fast. So, go ahead, Sean. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say in the kind of the spirit of debunking myths too. Another one that I get all the time. They're the former law enforcement that come in, thinking that because of their occupation, they're now prevented from. They can't disclose a mental health condition because it'll somehow impact their occupation performance.
Right.
And with that, it couldn't be any more wrong. When it comes down to it, there are two federal acts that actually prohibit it. The one being the American Disabilities Act, and then the big point there is if you disclose you have a disability to your employer, they have to make reasonable accommodations for you. That being one. But the second one is the Health Information Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, and that's a requirement where you would have to willingly disclose your information to your employer. Otherwise, it's on a need-to-know basis. Both prevent you from needing to disclose that information. So just to debunk that myth, needing to do this to like inability to carry a weapon or other things. Like, there's no limitations there.
Right. Very true. I do see. Is anybody else getting some feedback? I did got some there just for a second. I do see a question here I'd like to address with Wesley. Is it built soon? We don't need to put that up, but I can let you know that yes, there are times where you did not go to sick call because you were afraid that somebody was going to hurt you, where it was with promotions or anything else. And I do know what you mean by Rangers. I was with the 1st 75th Ranger Battalion and also Charlie Airborne, which was nothing but a bunch of Rangers up in Alaska. So as an old paratrooper, I do know what you're talking about. There's been times where I was limping away from situations and said, no, I'm fine. And I took care of it myself. So, but the important part is now that you do come out and you do talk about what happened now. Because actually under the way a claim actually gets processed, you have to have a current diagnosis. And to have a current diagnosis doesn't mean that you had one back then, it just means you have one now. So by that happening, that will actually help out with you talking about it. So I do know what you're talking about, Wesley. I actually got caught up in that mindset myself for a long time. But once I joined the program and started really listening and really trying to get with people and other coaches that really knew what was going on, that actually came out. And so when I came out with that, it was sort of like what I always say, it's your first step to therapy, talking about it, getting it out. And it really helped tremendously. And that's, with, an old Airborne Ranger, but somebody that has all these diplomas and all these citations on the wall here for psych. For a lot of you that don't know, I actually was a practitioner for over 20 years. And a lot of that was just to find out what was banging around in my head or some of my airborne buddies' heads. And help them through it. But once we got that, you're going to feel better about it because you're going to be making steps towards the therapeutic part of it. So that does happen where people didn't report anything at the time, but we can actually work with you. As a coach, we know how to work with that type of situation and get you through that. So, and I'm sure you've had plenty of those, right, Sean?
Oh yeah, most definitely.
All right, let's see.
I see two here that are related, John. If we can just knock those out really quick.
Yeah, go ahead,
man. One from
man.
Roberto, and then one from a Facebook user. So there's someone's anonymous that's in here.
Okay.
They were given a rating initially for PTSD, and they're trying to go about it through a higher level review. So when it comes down to VA claims, if you have a condition, you believe that your condition has gotten worse over time. Generally speaking, a higher level review is not going to be the best bet. Usually you want to provide new and relevant evidence to provide the VA with how your symptoms have gotten worse. Because again, this is all about kind of paper trail and documentation. And especially if you've gone for a long period of time, maybe you initially went to the VA and you have a rating, but then you went elsewhere where you haven't gone and spoken to anything between COVID and the myriad of issues. It's caused a backlog on the VA side for their ability to bring people in and go through. So maybe that you've been prevented from seeking treatment, or at least recurrent treatment, and documentation for your medical or your mental health condition. At any point in time, you can always file an increase. So if your symptoms have gotten worse, you can absolutely file an increase. I do not recommend going through a higher level review. That's generally speaking not the best course of action. It may apply just depending on how soon your CMP exam was and kind of what the results of that disability benefits questionnaire, the DBQ they fill out state. But you can absolutely file an increase, and I would definitely recommend it. But the key point there is symptoms. So John's talked about this a lot, and when it comes down to the ratings, right? So you already have the condition with the ratings. What differentiates 10% to 100%? Symptoms. So being able to articulate and have language and context for the symptoms that you have and provide that evidence to the VA is going to set you up for success in the long run. The paper trail leads into the CMP exam because it gives that CMP examiner an idea of who you are before you step foot in the room with them. But then, from that point, it's all about discussion. It's all about your ability to articulate what's going on. So when they go on their form, on the DBQ form that they fill out, it's a block check. So they just go in, they're checking out blocks as they're going down to articulate the symptoms that are impacted.
Right.
It's being able to talk about it.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely true. Now, Tommy Briscoe, you actually have a really good question here that a lot of people get caught up with. How long after the military can I file for PTSD? There is no time limit, okay? Parts of PTSD can actually be brought on with that trigger that you have in your head. And I'll talk about one of mine real quick, just to be talking about a trigger. And it can be onset later in life as you go along. So there is no time limit there. You don't get hooked up on stuff like that because there is points where things will come up in your daily life and then you're triggered back to those thoughts like that. Matter of fact, there for a long time, I actually had triggers on a situation with red and blue lights and could never really figure it out. I just know that I felt a lot of anxiety I saw flashing red and blue lights. And when I started going through therapy myself and started looking into the situation, I realized that the red and blue lights were on a helo that I actually got medevaced out. And I started making the connection that way. And that way, by me finding that out and figuring that out, I could actually change that to where I changed it to more of a more positive thought about red and blue lights. That's just a small one. I just figured I'd bring that up so you can understand that. But there is no time limit. You can go ahead and report and start seeking the help that you deserve as soon as you're willing and wanting to talk about it, but you need to go ahead and push forward with that. So let's see, get another one here.
Dennis is a good one. You know, he looks like he did a lot of secret squirrel stuff. He had top secret clearance, and he did a lot of things that were classified and confidential that he couldn't talk about. So when it comes down to the documented stressor that we were talking about, I think that's where this plays in. And my 2 cents on this, if it's not documented, it's not there, go for something else. Again, mental health is really, we're talking about symptoms, right? So PTSD is stressor specific, but there's other OTSD, there's adjustment disorder, there's a number of depression, anxiety, even insomnia. There's a number of things that may apply for the diagnosis, but really the diagnosis is just your foot in the door. When it comes down to getting the rating for it and getting it service connected, you're going to want to have documentation to back it up through some means. Whether that it could be a performance evaluation like a OER and COER, or it could be an award that maybe you would have received. If you have documentation to back up what you're looking to claim for the PTSD, they'll likely give it to you. But again, don't pigeonhole yourself. When it comes down to mental health claims on a more broad spectrum, they're very subjective in nature mostly. PTSD is the most specific, but the other conditions may apply in this case if you have no documentation. But if you do have the documentation, you can document your stressor, and there's something to prove that this happened while on active duty. Definitely make the claim. Back it up with evidence. Go in, make sure you have your nexus firmly established. If you're working with a coach, definitely consider a nexus letter. That's something that you're going to want to probably acquire. We partner with Telemedica. They're a great company to work with, and even if you're not an elite member, it's a route that you can go to get a nexus letter. But I would absolutely recommend getting the coach, talking through what's going on, and definitely resource you for it.
That's a good point. And I know a lot of people, every once in a while, I do end up getting a client that talks about being part of the spec op community. This is classified, this is classified. One thing about when you're talking about these type of situations, about most of those classified events after a while become not classified. But you don't really have to talk about like a particular place. You talk about the event okay, well, we jumped into this and this is what happened. You don't have to actually say we jumped into Afghanistan or something like that. You can actually just say during a jump, this happened. This is what I witnessed. And you don't have to go but so far into it before it comes a stressor event. And that's with any practitioner. Okay. Let's see. Roman has a good one here. I am an elite member, Dr. Smith. Hey, that's pretty cool. Dr. Smith's actually one of our teammates. So helped me get to 100% PNT. It was his coaching, all the tools made available through the elite membership, where I gathered the bits and pieces that I had to experience and needed to find how to put into words. And this actually touches my heart a little bit, because as coaches, we get caught up in this, and we're just as excited as you are when everything comes together. I had to endure some of my symptoms for so long that I didn't even realize how to talk about them. That's exactly true. And that's for a lot of us. And God bless you, sir. And thank you for not only your service, but thank you for stepping forward and working through the program to where you can get what you deserve. I think that's one of the biggest things that I really, truly enjoy, is when a veteran is successful by coming through the program. It's heartwarming, because there's another one that actually it worked for it. Here's another situation where somebody took the step to make it happen for themselves and their families. And this, again, this isn't just for yourself, it's also for your family, so they can, one, understand, but also so you can keep moving forward and keep finding ways to cope with this and ways to redirect and stuff like that during that. See, this particular subject we could do 6 classes and still not touch on every aspect of PTSD or mental health to begin with. So, but that's great to hear those stories like that. And if you want, if you're on this call, definitely get with these links that we're flashing up here to get your free 30-minute evaluation, or not evaluation, but discovery call. And also how to sign up with VACI. I guarantee you, when I came on board with VACI, I will never regret it, simply because it made me think about things in just a little bit different way. And running into my coach, which I'll never forget, that actually said, "Hey, John, you got to drop the ego. You got to drop all that stuff about the whole airborne ranger stuff. We need to really get to address these issues." And because of that, I was able to go ahead and work the program like it's supposed to. I became a student of the program. I started trying to learn everything I could learn about it. And as that came in, it just helped me during CNPs. It helped me while I was still helps me while I'm talking to the psychiatrist at the VA and stuff like that. So definitely, if you're interested, definitely check it out and definitely become a member. Once you're a member, you're going to see how this all comes together. And once you got a coach, you're going to develop a relationship with another person that is going to fight for you. Somebody that is going to go to battle for you, a different type of battle buddy. And when you do win, just like that gentleman was saying on there, we all jump up and down, and we're excited about everything. Because that means another veteran was able to work out what they needed to work out. So,
whoever spends a time where you're going through a process and you get frustrated, and maybe not turn out the way you want. Maybe you go to the VA, you've been denied a few times, or you simply, like for a graphic representation, you're having difficulty changing things on the TV, and your kid comes up and they spend 5 seconds clicking 2 buttons and they fix the problem that you spent half a day trying to figure out. Well, that's pretty much what the coaches do. I mean, when it comes down to things with the VA, it's really all about the strategy and then the education, kind of empowering you with knowledge and information that's relevant to the VA to make sure that you get the rating that you deserve at the end. Is everyone eligible for 100%? There are certain people that are not, but those are few and far between. Like there's usually a method to get there, and if there's things that are bothering you, you've got someone in your back corner looking at every possible avenue and approach to get your condition sort of connected. And here we're talking about PTSD. This is one very specific type of condition, and it does apply to a lot of veterans because it's the third most claimed condition. But when it comes down to a more broad spectrum, it's not the only thing that's there. And there's a question from Duchess in here on, if it's been a long time, maybe you initially pursued it and got denied, but it's been 20, 30, 40 years. We're working with Vietnam era veterans, Korean War era veterans all the time. And when Dr. John was talking about that, the Ranger stigma, people that just don't talk about things. There was you don't want to be that sick hall ranger, the person that goes in and right. The documentation is not there. There's always an approach. I'll tell you, as a commander on the reserve side, I made sure every one of my soldiers got documentation. I made sure they were all taken care of because I was aware of the problems on the back end. But most are not. As you're going through your captain's career courses and your officer training, this is not something you're really briefed on. Is what are the ramifications of your decisions 20 and 30 years down the road on certain documentation items. But when it comes down to Duchess's question on 30 years have gone by since claiming a condition, it's definitely something worth pursuing. If you do have something to document your stressor, maybe you have an old combat award. Or you've got, the people with, especially Vietnam era vets, they've gone through, a lot of them got Purple Hearts, a lot of them got combat action badges, expert infantryman badges. that all apply, and it'll state in your plaque. So even if you may not have the medical service documentation because it got burned in a fire, destroyed, you name the situation why you don't have it, as long as you have the award or you have something, you have a claim. That's the start of your nexus, and then it's just empowering that nexus. With a nexus letter is usually preferred because then you get the medical credentials behind the nexus that go in. So when it goes down to the VA, the tie goes to the runner. So even if there's some friction on whether it's service connected or not, if you provide documentation from a medical provider that has equivalent credentials to that of the VA examiner, you're good to go. Generally speaking, there's a few kind of nuanced situations that apply there. But,
Right. No, exactly true. I actually see another one in here. Joseph Kelly. Do you have to be treated by a VA doctor to file claims? No, you do not. You can still be treated by outside doctors, but there's a little trick here that I always tell my clients. If you're treated by a private doctor outside the VA, make sure you get those records, notes, anything that they're talking about or write down, and you take that to the VA and you say, put this in my file. Then you've got both. You got both the best of both worlds there. So don't think that you have to go to the VA and see a VA doctor to talk about PTSD or any kind of mental health condition. You can go to any psychiatrist or psychologist and talk to them. And those notes and stuff like that, put in your VA file, just like I said. And what'll happen is it'll bring in a doctor that's from the outside. So then you'll have even more evidence by doing it that way, by saying that, hey, yes, he is suffering from this, or she is suffering from this. They need the help. So no, you don't have to do that. I know that's always a question. I see somebody privately outside the VA. Is that going to be a problem? No, it's never going to be a problem. As long as you grab the records and take them to the VA, drop them off there. That way it's sitting there waiting for an adjudicator to look at. So this is the way I look at it. So, all right. Let's see if we got another
one here.
All right.
It just mostly pertains to, at least in my experience, MST. So Sandra talks about if you didn't have an accident or event that was reported when it actually happened, how can you claim it? And we actually, before the call, John Bell was talking about some ways to, there's avenues to get this connected.
Right.
We'll say, Sandra, this does happen a lot, and particularly happens for the military sexual trauma, MST. Something happened, and whether your chain of command didn't want to report it, or the person didn't want to report it, fear of ramifications, whatever the situation may have been, the Army's gotten a lot better with the SHARP program. Especially after Vanessa Guillen, and it was front page news for a long period of time. But they've gotten a lot better. It's now something we discuss at Liberty 5 times per year. It's now a program that's not just an annual requirement, it's 5 times. But when it comes down to, all this has happened, and now you're in the situation where you're looking to claim PTSD, you're trying to figure out how you're going to document the stressor. There's a couple different ways. And so John's got some ways to talk about the performance side, but I'll just briefly talk about, the body letters can be a big help. Getting, if you had a commander, first sergeant, senior NCO, if you had a girlfriend or someone else that was in service with you that may have been able to articulate what's going on, can go a long way. Assuming you don't have that, John's got a great way of talking about kind of the degradation of the performance,
right,
which is pretty unique.
Yeah, and that's going to be in your reports too, because that's say you have a bad. At a certain point, you're maxing out your PT test, and all of a sudden that starts dropping. You're maxing out all your other reports, and then all of a sudden your performance starts dropping. Those are indicators that an incident did happen. And that will be recognized by the VA to where they go like, well, something did happen here in April, because look at this, everything starts dropping, and this was a perfect soldier until this point. So there are other reports that they can actually look at to determine, yes, not only did an incident happen, but it definitely affected them, because you see all these drops in different things that happen. So know that just because you think you might not have a lot of medical evidence, there may be evidence out there that's going to help you. And again, what Sean brought up earlier, you might have a situation where you can't verify that particular event. Doesn't mean that you're not going through symptoms of mental health. It doesn't mean that at all. So, and you can still go and make a claim for mental health, just under a different heading other than PTSD, which is fine and dandy because they all rank the same. All of them go from 0 to 100. So the thing is mainly think about that you're going through these symptoms. You are having a hard time with this, and you do need to get the help that you deserve, be it therapy, be it the situations that the VA can provide for you, be it a group thing or one-on-one. Definitely go through this and attack this just like you would attack anything else. I mean, if you broke your leg, once you're out of the cast, you want to build it back up. Well, that's basically the same thing. This is another trauma injury that you have that you need to learn more about it and go ahead and address it and go ahead and get to a point where you can actually see the light at the end of the tunnel. It doesn't have to be so heavy weight on you. You can actually get through this by following the steps, simple steps, identifying it, finding out what you can do and work that plan. So let's see. We have just a couple of more minutes. I'm seeing all this here. Can you explain chronic pain syndrome? Okay, this is a little bit different now. Chronic pain syndrome has actually changed to somatic symptom disorder. The reason they did this is a funny story about this. I'm sure there's a video out there with me talking about this, but what happened was they started realizing the psych world and the physical world had to come together on this one. Because chronic pain is basically somebody explaining what they go through, but you're still going to have the same symptoms as you would for mental health. So they brought it all together, and now they call it somatic symptom disorder. This is a disorder that personally, I think just about anybody that wore the uniform is going to have, because we put our bodies through a lot of different things. And it doesn't really, from your MOS, it doesn't, there's people that, sat in an office, but yet you still had to do PT, you still had to do all this stuff and different things. When you do physical activity, there's a chance of something getting hurt. So if you have chronic pain syndrome or SSD, this can actually help you in the realm of a mental health claim, because they still have the same symptoms. You still go through the same things on a daily basis that could create other problems in your life. Your knee hurts in a certain way, you stand up, you twist the wrong way because any reason. You're going to feel bad about your knee hurting, but you're also going to go like, why can't I still do this? Why can't I still run a mile? Why can't I do? So that leads into the anxiety and depression along with that. So, but definitely the best thing you can do is get with a coach, join the program, get with a coach, and go through this process so you can actually start addressing these type of things, no matter what the condition is. So that's my best advice, and it worked for me. It worked for Sean, and we became coaches after that. I think the most important part about all of this is that you're stepping forward as a warrior and saying, look, this happened. I need help with this. And I think that's the most important part that we need to really look at. And God bless you guys. I hope to see you soon, where you've joined the program and have a coach and getting through that so you can address these type of situations. And again, I said, not just for yourself, but for your family or loved ones that might not understand it. So.
If anything, you took anything out of today, even a brief discussion point, that's a step in the right direction. Now you're looking at what may be going on and trying to get help for it, which is really the big thing. But beyond that, if you want help with your compensation and getting the claim file, just please reach out. John and I are here to help. We got a whole team of others that are here to help, and we look forward to working with you. We have a whole slew of classes, so if this generated ideas, there's a lot more specific things we can talk about and discuss. And so just understand you've got a team here that's ready to work for you. So if you need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, perfect. Keep fighting. That's all I can say is keep fighting. All right. Well, I think we're at the end here. I hope to see everybody soon. And good luck to everybody.